Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for being here. And I just want to tell you a little bit about who I am because I think it's important to understand who a potential speaker may be or a person who you're dealing with. A lot of times in this world, you realize that we all put on masks and we all kind of hide things and we all try to show an image of what we want to be or what we perceive that you think you want us to be. And whether it's true or not, that, you know, who's the judge? But for me, I try to be as real as possible, but please not on a pedestal because I got a lot of issues as well. But for what I do is as a speaker, you try to take all the things that you see in the world and you put it in a package that people can understand. And that's a gift. For a while, I kind of pushed away from that gift, not realizing what it was and saying, oh, I'm not a speaker or being afraid to speak. But then you realize the reality is that if that's a gift that you're giving, try to maximize it. Use it to the best of its potential because it may not be for you. It may be for somebody else. And that seems to be what I have the ability to do. When I was a young man, I was on my knees. I had dropped out of high school, and I'm on my knees, and I'm praying to God, saying, God, if you could, just save me. Just give me something. And I'll throw out your name. I'll praise your name. I'll say all these great things about you, as we always do in our most desperate points in our lives. But then sometimes our prayers get answered. And for me, I was on the verge of trying to kill myself, and those prayers got answered. Obviously, I didn't die. But now I had to take this journey from being a dropout to high school to playing 11 years in the NFL. And the journey's not easy. But this is a lesson, and this is why I say we can put stories together so that everybody can understand and then apply those principles to our own lives. One of the things I first had to do was to learn how to humble myself, to have to go back to realize that, some things that you're going to have to do, and you're going to have to swallow that big lump in your throat, and you may have to say, I'm sorry to somebody, or you may have to, for me, go back to school where you're the biggest kid, where you're in the same classroom with your younger brother, where you're being made fun of because you were a dropout in high school or because people are looking at you like you're dumb. You may have to go back and face that and say, you know what, that's okay because I know this is my path. You have to have a vision. You have to know where you're going. You have to have a direction to where you're going because energy can be dispersed all over the place. But when you focus that energy, and you hear those sayings, it's like a water hose. If it's all over the place, there's no power. But when it's focused, it can saw through rocks. I mean, it's a powerful force. So you start focusing yourself. You got to humble yourself. You have to work. I had a plan that I was going to go to college. I wanted to prove to everybody that I wasn't stupid. But here you are, a dropout in high school. You go back. You're not playing your senior year of high school football. Trying to figure out what to do. You're telling everybody that you're going to go to college, but the first step is you got to graduate high school. So you got to take it in steps. And just like my book, Stepping Stone, in the beginning was a word, you got to take steps to get to where you're at. A lot of times we see the big vision and we want it right now, but there are times where you have to take steps along the way to get to that vision. And so you have to take those steps, go back, be humble, finish up school, at least that's what I did, and then have your plan. So my plan was to go to college, and it's not going to always be the way that everyone else does it. Who am I? We didn't have money in our family to pay for college. No one's ever been to college. No one even had a vision for college. How am I going to get to college? I didn't play my senior high school football, so I wasn't going to be a star football player. How am I going to get to college? But sometimes when you keep saying it out loud, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. This is what I want to become. And if you say it out loud to yourself or say it out loud to people, but if you say it enough, your eyes start opening and you start seeing the things that are right in front of your face because there's a lot of blessings or gifts right in front of your face. And sometimes we don't even realize it's right there. And we could walk right past it 1,000 times, but it's right there. I kept saying, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be somebody. I have to be somebody. Training in the gym to do it because I knew football may be the only way that I could get to college, but I had no path, no direction, no whatever. And so I meet a guy in a gym, and he tells me about a junior college in Oakland, California. I'm going to drop out in high school in Texas. He tells me about junior college in Oakland, California. I've never been outside any further than I could walk. But the reality is that sometimes you have to get outside of your environment to get into a new environment. Sometimes you have to get outside that wall that you've created or that safety mechanism that you created and step into something that's uncomfortable, something that's different, something that's hard. For me, it was going outside of Texas, but also I knew that if I failed, it would be a lot harder to go back. And so I had to go back, and you have to make it a finality. You have to say, you know what, if I go, I'm not going to have these segues where I can go back into what I used to do. I need to make this my reality. So that long journey back on the plane would have been hard for me. And so we go to Oakland, California. I played there for 2 years. Lesson of life. The very things that you've grown up with, the very things that you've dealt with, the struggles or whatever, may be the very tools that you need to make it to wherever you're trying to go. So for me, when I dropped out of high school, and my mission, my focus was to train to say, I'm going to be the best. And every night I would train. You don't have to do it in front of everybody. The world doesn't need to know what you're going to do. Every night I'm training saying, I am going to be the best, got to be the best, going to be the best. I would say that to myself, going to be the best, got to be the best, going to be the best. Every time I felt like I couldn't go, I would go one more because I knew I had to be the best, going to be the best, got to be the best. So when I go to the junior college, I couldn't play a lick of football, but going to be the best, got to be the best, going to be the best, kept pushing myself. When everybody else was ready to quit, I kept pushing myself. That's the thing, is that there's going to be hard work. You're going to work for what you want. It's not going to be easy, but you got to work. You got to push. You got to outwork the next person. The step of humility. One of the reasons why the coaches wanted to help me was because they saw in me, I guess, a polite young man who just wanted to do well, who didn't think the world owed him anything, was just trying to do well. So help is going to be given to those who are looking for help, who accept help, who want to be helped. If you put a wall up and you close the doors, all like that, you may not get the help that you want. So I was fortunate that I had coaches who cared about me. I was fortunate that I kept working hard. I was fortunate that even though I had injuries, because of the way I trained, it was like you keep going. You just put a bunch of tape on it and you figure out a way to go. And fortunate because I had the natural athletic ability. I say this to people, and when I talk to young kids, there are three things that make you great. And this isn't business, this isn't life, this isn't anything. The three things that make you great. It's your natural ability. And it's in any of those things is, what do you maximize? If you were a football player, your natural ability, there's some guys that are just phenoms. They have the natural ability. But do you maximize their natural ability? There are kids that I've met who, in this grade, they're the phenoms because they're natural athletes. But because they're phenoms, they get lazy or they don't push themselves as hard. Next, they get to the next level, and all of a sudden, they're not as good. And they get to the next level, or the next level never comes because they've never kept pushing. So you got to figure out what your natural ability is and then maximize it. For me, it was the gym. I like to work out. And so I maximized. I pushed like a madman in the gym. And so, here I am, 6'2", 235 pounds, but I'm bench pressing about 500 pounds. And I am pushing the weight. But that was my natural ability, which would have probably been maybe 300. But the push part is the 500. And, people looking at me, oh, you must have took steroids. Never steroids. It was just busting my butt. And you got to hang around the people that can inspire you. So I used to hang around bodybuilders. I used to hang around people in the gym. I used to look at the pictures of all the athletes on the wall and say, that's the way I want to be. And so when I pushed, I would push like I was crazy till I could barely move. And so that happened. So it's your natural ability. That's one of the factors. And if you do that, you can be all this on your team. Second thing is intelligence. And any of the one, you're all that. Any two, you can become the Pro Bowl player. You can become the star person in your league. You could be the star person in your conference. Intelligence. They're guys who, on paper, they're not the fastest, they're not the strongest, but they know the game. They know what they're supposed to do. They know what the players around them are supposed to do. They know what the opponents are supposed to do, even before the opponents know what they're going to do. They have looked at the game plan so much that they know that if they line up in a certain formation on a certain side of the hash and a certain down, that 96% of the times they're going to run this play, and you wonder how that person got to that hole before anybody else. Not because they were the fastest, not because they're the strongest, but because mental. They knew their game. They knew their whatever. Same thing in sales. I knew the question before the person was going to get. I studied. I knew every possible question that person could ask me. So when he asked me, I could say, this is what you need. This is whatever it is. If you get the intelligence part down, that's another thing that could make you great. And if you get both of those, you can become like the star of your company, the star of whatever. But those two things can make you great. And then the last one is heart. You got to have heart. And heart is something that's hard to define, but heart is the staying up late, studying. It's taking the extra classes. It's doing the things that no one else wants to do. It's paying the price. It's when the coach says run across the field, you do it. When the guy's running 90 yards and everybody's giving up, you're still sprinting, trying to make the tackle. You're diving. You got mud in your face. When the coach says I need somebody to play special teams, you don't think that you're so great that you can't play special teams. You say whatever you need, coach. You're willing to do what you have to do. That's the heart. That's the part that a lot of people, you can be as big as you want, you can be as smart as you want, but a lot of people don't have that. But if you have all three, those are the Hall of Famers. Those are the ones that everybody's saying, man, I wish I could be like that person. And that applies to business, that applies to life, that applies to sports. So anyhow, my journey is that I did all that. I end up going to this junior college. From there, I get drafted, opportunity, which is in your face. To become a draft pick, and I play in the NFL, and so I play all these years. When I speak, I'm just trying to tell a story because the world is built on storytellers. And if you can tell a story that people could identify with and you give them something to take away, then that's me doing my job, and hopefully it'll help someone else. So that's me, working on this track that God has given me. And would love to speak to anyone out there, any companies, any schools, wherever. I know what I have. I know my life. But I also know that I can help you in whatever you're trying to do, because hopefully I can put everything that you're thinking about, because sometimes we don't know how to put it together. And you have somebody and they say, this is how you put it together. Kind of like, and I'll finish, kind of like a mom who can take all this stuff that's around the house. And you're like, and then all of a sudden she puts it together, he, I don't know, whoever, puts it together, and it's this gourmet pot of food, and you're eating it, and it becomes your Sunday special. And it is the best tasting thing you've ever had, because she knew how to take all those pieces and put them together and say, here, that's me. I'm that. So if you see me and I have a chef's hat on, I can't cook, but I can speak. Have a good one. Take care.